Alright, despite the fact that this thing just finished a 1.5 year long rebuild, it's time for another project on the S15, and that is to put the fog lights back in. As it was mentioned on the recent walk-around video of the car, since fitting the S-Tune bumper, it's been without its original fog lights since there's no provisions there anymore, and I want to put them back in. I like the fog lights, I like the look of them, I like the functionality, and given the car had factory optioned fog lights, it has an unused switch on the headlight stock, which is bugging me a little bit. So break out the supplies, get to templating, and figure out how we're going to install some fog lights onto the car. All in, this project was pretty straightforward, but still a rather fun one. At the end of the day, all I needed was a simple set of brackets with which to mount the OEM fog lights, but I wanted to add an extra detail in the form of an integrated tow hook. As it happened, the outer openings in the S-Tune bumper lined up perfectly with the car's frame rails, meaning that the bracket on either side could simply be a flat piece of metal extending straight forward, and they would sit more or less exactly where I needed them in the openings. Is the tow hook necessary? Not hugely, but there will surely be times in winter when the car has to be transported again, either for an event or perhaps to a friend's shop so we can work on it, and an easily accessible loop would be appreciated. Sticking with the Porsche inspiration, the basic design came from the Dakar, but with the angles and radii matched to those of the S-Tune bumper's opening. The secondary brackets for the fog lights were a little more complex to design given how said lights are designed with a tab on one side, but soon enough I had them figured out and it was just then a matter of redrawing the chipboard templates digitally so the files could go off for laser cutting. As you can see, I tweaked the design a touch more once the aluminum parts arrived, and then it was time to start bending them up and drilling holes. In designing the brackets, I did have to keep in mind the limitations of the small sheet metal brake I have, and ultimately did have to make a couple of the bends with a Clarkson approved method, but they came together regardless. For ease of use and to prevent any lost 10mm nuts, riv nuts were put in place for mounting both the fog lights to the new housings and said housings to the main brackets. Alright, fast forward some time and we have the finished, for now, fog lights and brackets to put in the car. They're just rattle can for now. Is the finish absolutely perfect? No, but there is a growing list of parts on the car that are intended to go off for powder coating over a winter, so when the car is down for a few months I can pull it apart, take pieces off, send them out and wait. These will be refinished. For now, rattle can will do the job. They're all in behind the bumper anyway, and aside from the tow hook portion, you're not really going to see any of it anyway. I'm sure a rock will kick up and chip them at some point, but this works for now. Have the bracket for the driver's side, which is identical to the passenger side bracket, just minus the tow hook portion. I only wanted one for a little bit of asymmetry, and you typically only see one anyway. And then we have the brackets here for the actual fog lights themselves, which will hold the fog light in place with the tab and 2 bolts as per the factory design, and then bolt to the brackets that bolt to the car. So let's get to it. Installation is straightforward. The main brackets on each side feed in from the front of the bumper and bolt to the car's frame rail. The fog lights then load into their own brackets with the factory tab and 2 bolts, before also being fed in through the bumper and being bolted in place from the main opening. In designing the coming radiator ducting, the parts for which were also in the same order, I made sure to keep these bolts easily accessible so it doesn't become a chore to take the fog lights out in the future. And with that, the factory fog lights are finally back in place. Naturally, on a turbo car, these openings would have been filled with an intercooler and piping, but given that's not the route for this car, I get to integrate something different instead. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the setup, and the tow hook especially. I'm sure there'll be revisions to the design of everything in the future, as I seem to never leave well enough alone, but the car has its fog lights back, the tow hook's a nice detail, and the bumper is that much closer to looking complete again without so much dead space in behind. Now it's time to get to work on the ducting, but that'll be a future video. For now, thanks for watching, and have a good one.